Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, legendary boxing writer, Hall of Famer Jack Hirsch, here to bring you sports updates, news, and commentary with some special guests today. We got on Randy Lang from the New York Jets, their media consultant. We also have on former WFAN overnight host and boxing expert himself, Tony Page. They'll both be coming up later in the show. Jack, good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning, Matt. Good show today. I guess it's you and I the first hour.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope you pass the ball. It's evenly distributed. You don't take all the shots the way you normally want to do. I want to score as well. I want to get my points across today.
Yes. I'll make sure I look for you in the open area, Jack. So let's start out. Big news a couple nights ago. John Madden, he just had a documentary done about him on Fox Sports. They showed on Sunday, passes away at 85 years old. And Jack, I've heard this before, right? Certain times, and I don't know if this is true or not in Coach Madden's case, but certain points in your life, like somebody close to you, like a husband or a wife passes away, and sometimes that person passes away very shortly after. Is there a point you think in life where it's the end and there's a climax to it, whether it's a documentary or a game or an event in your life, where all of a sudden, right after that big thing, or you lose somebody, they said that they died because of that. Now I don't know if that's true or not, but it is strange how after all this documentary, all these people commenting on this documentary about John Madden, he passes away like a day or two later.
I know, it was ironic. I thought about that, and they're going to replay the documentary. And people, even who watched it the first time, are going to want to now watch it the second time, take a closer look. The things about John Madden. There's the professional side of John Madden. There was the personal side of John Madden. Both were first rate. The John Madden that we loved wasn't a John Madden as a coach, even though he was popular with his players. It's when he went into the broadcast booth, he became just a regular guy. Just by the way he spoke to the people, he was never condescending. He was the type of individual you'd enjoy sitting down and watching a game with. And he was the type of guy, in his Madden mobile, he'd travel across the country and he'd meet people. He was like the politician who tried to get votes, but his was genuine, okay? He genuinely enjoyed meeting people, no strings attached, stopping off at small towns, wanting to learn about the people there. He actually wanted to educate himself as to the people. He enjoyed meeting the people as much as they enjoyed meeting him. He had certain stops where he went with his Madden mobile, certain restaurants that he ate at. The professional John Madden, he was the one that we were first introduced to. And I didn't realize, Mac, until he passed away, what a great coach he really was. Now, I lived through the John Madden era when he coached those great Oakland Raider teams. They won one Super Bowl, but I remember them coming short. And I remember them having a lot of great players on those teams. But people sometimes think, Mac, well, the coach, has the great players. I look at it sometimes another way. Sometimes they're great players because of the coach, because the coach had a big role in their growth and their development. And a stat that's very interesting for all the coaches, Mac, in NFL history who coached double-digit years, at least 10 years or more, John Madden has the greatest winning percentage of any coach in NFL history who coached 10 years or more. I mean, I didn't know that. I knew his Raider teams are very successful, and it would be very frustrating because they constantly would get knocked out one game short of getting to the Super Bowl until they got over the top. But of course, you play great teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers with their steel curtain. I mean, that's a heck of a hurdle that very few teams could have overcome, yet the Raiders would always play them tough.
Yeah, that and the Miami Dolphins. Good morning, David Guyette. Glad you could stop in with us this morning. Yeah, I mean, listen, John Madden was successful almost at everything he did, but he wasn't dressed for success. He wasn't, the guy that was so professional and almost, unreachable or untouchable. Just a lineman. He was a lineman. And that was what he was throughout his life. Just a guy that wasn't fancy dressed. He didn't talk fancy. He talked plain. And a great announcer, great coach, and of course the video craze with Madden and the All Madden team, the Thanksgivings. I mean, Jack, it goes on and on.
I got to tell you about the type of man he was. Let me talk. Okay, Carl Weathers, who played the part of Apollo Creed in Rocky, he was in the Oakland Raider camp. Okay, he was a football player, never quite made the team, to the best of my knowledge. But Carl Weathers, I remember him talking about a play he was involved in. A player was once hurt, and people speculated about the Oakland Raider team. Well, did someone take a cheap shot? And I remember Carl Weathers saying Coach Madden told us, basically let them know he wasn't going to tolerate any cheap shots, that could hurt an opponent. Okay, which kind of showed the type of guy he was. He believed in tough, hard-nosed football, but you don't deliberately go low where you could injure a guy. Okay, that was the type of human being he was.
Well, let me give you one quick story before we push on that Jim Jeffcoat shared on J&B Talking Shop. You remember that Darryl Stingley got hit by the Oakland Raider defensive back, became paralyzed. The coach of the Patriots, John Madden, tried to contact him and say he should stay with Darryl Stingley at the hospital because he was at the hospital there where they were playing at. And it was too late. I'm trying to remember the coach's name at the Patriots at the time. I think it was Hanley. I'm not sure, though. Probably wrong, so don't quote me on that. But anyway, he flew back with the team. John Madden went there with Darryl Stingley and stayed with him until his family got there and visited him every day at that hospital. And when Darryl came out and finally talked about his hospital, he said that John Madden was an incredible human being. So he was always checking on him and, I don't know if he felt bad, but he did about what happened to him as far as the team goes. I don't think it was a legal hit. It was just unfortunate where he was hit and how he was hit. But John Madden was there for him more than his coach was. Pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
So, Jack, let's get to the NBA. The standings are real quick. The top six, the Nets are 23-9. The Bulls are 22-10. The Bucks 23-13. The Heat are 22-13. And the Cavs are 20-14. In the West, the Warriors and the Suns are tied for first at 27-7. The Jazz are at 25-9. The Grizzlies 22-14. The Nuggets 17-16. And the Clippers are at 18-17. That's what they are right now. In the games, the Hornets beat the Pacers 115-108. The Knicks beat Detroit 94-85. The Clippers beat the Celtics 91-82. The Bulls over the Hawks 131-117. Grizzlies beat the Lakers 104-99. The Suns beat the Thunder 115-97. The Jazz beat Portland 120-105. The Kings beat Dallas 95-94. And in some news, Jet, the Cavaliers, Ricky Rubio has a torn ACL. His left knee is done for the season. Kyrie Irving finally comes out and speaks for the first time about being a part-time player. And Durant states no matter what arena, because they were chanting Curry MVP, people come to see him. He didn't feel bad that it was in his arena that they were shouting for Curry MVP. So that's
Durant knows Curry a lot. Okay,
yes.
Mac. Listen, Durant went from OKC to Golden State, and Curry welcomed him so unselfishly. Durant won 2 Finals MVP awards. Curry deferred to Durant. Okay, bypassed the chance to try to become, championship series MVP himself, Finals MVP himself. And Durant got it both times. He allowed Durant to be the A side, and he took 1A, even though Curry was basically on a par with Durant, as we see this year. Okay, how terrific a player Stephen Curry was. He took a step back to accommodate Durant. And you would think Durant would say, it's a nice thing. Let Curry get the MVP award. He was so good to me. Now, Durant's not saying anything wrong, but to just say, I don't feel bad, he should say, look, I'm happy for Steph, and he should praise him profusely for what he did for him at Golden State.
No, I mean, I would agree with that. Kyrie
Ricky
Irving.
Rubio, too.
Yeah, well, definitely. I agree with that.
I would mention with Ricky Rubio's injury, setback for the Cavaliers, a big one. He was having a terrific year for Cleveland. And now with him out for the year and Colin Sexton, their top scorer, out for the year, Cleveland, who got off to a great start, I think you're going to see them gently sliding backwards, which gives the teams behind them a lot of hope.
Yeah, listen, I just think that Ricky Rubio really makes that team go, and without him there, that team's going to have some problems as far as making the playoffs.
Well, they got Jarrett Allen, they have Mobley, big guys who can rebound, hit the boards. They'll still be okay, but they definitely, are losing an edge.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's the point guard there, and he's very, very good at what he does.
Knicks might catch him now, Mac. Knicks might catch him.
We'll see. Kyrie coming out saying, he's stayed in shape and, he's ready to be that part-time player. And, he finally sees why the team did what the team did as far as, not letting him play. I guess at home, it didn't make a lot of sense. Kyrie Irving, to me, when he talks, doesn't make a lot of sense. He says some things like saying, after looking at it now, he understands what the team did. What the team didn't do anything. The governor of York shut you down. You got to have shots to practice and be in the building. So it wasn't the team. It was the state.
Oh, it was a team to the extent because they didn't want him playing the road games because there'd be a lack of continuity. They don't want, the team practicing all the time and him just showing up for the games when they were on the road. So there was that bit of a conflict. The Nets gave in and they went against their principles finally because, they were short on players because of COVID and teams are making desperate moves. So I could understand the Nets going back to Kyrie Irving, even though I don't fully agree with it. Listen, even in other sports like the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, they reached out to Phillip Rivers to come out of retirement because their quarterback situation was murky because of COVID, because Wentz was going to have to, miss a game. So, teams are doing odd things. But listen, Kyrie is a terrific player. I mean, we all know that. No one questions what he can do on the court. But he's a bit erratic with his comments. I don't know whether Kyrie himself comprehends what comes out of his mouth some of the time. He might be a good, decent human being. I mean, he doesn't strike me as being mean-spirited, so that works in his favor. But he's pretty erratic in, in how he goes about things.
Well, I there's one thing for sure I know about Kyrie, and he's all about Kyrie, and that I do know about Kyrie Irving. In the NHL, Jack, the standings right now, Atlantic Division, Tampa Bay is 21-6, Toronto's 20-8, the Panthers 19-7, Detroit is 15-13 in the Met Division, You have the Capitals in first now at 19-16. Hurricanes at 21-17. The Rangers at 19-8. I'm not saying that right. Sorry. The Capitals are 19-6. 19-16. The Hurricanes at 21-7. The Rangers at 19-8. Pittsburgh at 17-8. In the West Division Conference, Central Division, the Blues are 18-9. Wild 19-9, the Predators 19-11, the Avalanche 17-8, and finally in the Pacific, the Knights are 21-12, the Ducks 17-9, the Flames 15-7, the Oilers 18-12. The Panthers beat the Rangers last night 4-3.
Saw that game, Mac.
The Devils beat the Sabres 4-3. The Capitals beat the Predators 5-3. The Blues beat the Oilers 4-2. The Flyers beat the Kraken 3-2. The Canucks 2. The Ducks 1. I saw part of the game too, Jack. I saw the in between the legs back shot into the goal by one of the Rangers players. It was a heck of a shot.
Yeah. You know what was interesting about the game? Maybe it was my imagination. The Rangers had a 1-goal lead in the third period. And you tend to see teams in soccer with a 1-goal lead just playing defensively. And maybe it was just my imagination, but it seemed like the Rangers all of a sudden got a little bit too defensive. I mean, if they had a chance on a breakaway, of course, they would take it down the ice. They would try to score. But all in all, they were kind of laying back. It seemed a little, trying to absorb the Panthers attack. And, the Panthers came out, and the Panthers were super aggressive. They seemed to want it more. They came on with a barrage of 3 goals in the third period, and they earned the game. And the Devils, I mean, they snapped a 6-game losing streak. The Devils really got off to a promising start this season. And you kind of wondered, were they going to be a lot better than we thought they'd be? But that 6-game losing streak put things in perspective. They're still a young team. They're in the developmental stage, and the Devil fan base has a lot of patience with them. Because of the Rangers and the Islanders, the Devils always seem to be able to fly under the radar, which is, a good thing for their organization at this point in time.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the hockey did take that break from the Christmas holidays, and it just started playing up again. And they did shorten the isolation period, like most sports are doing right now. If you're asymptomatic in COVID, they used to have you out for 2 weeks. They've shortened that to 5 days. They are making adjustments as they go along to try to get the players back faster during these times.
Well, you know what no one really considers? When there's a break from COVID, it could be as little as 1 week. Players aren't practicing together for the most part. And they kind of, I don't want to say fall out of shape, but they fall out of sync. I mean, it's just not the same. They kind of lose their edge. And sometimes they don't even get it back. A couple of seasons ago, the Philadelphia Flyers were really having a good regular season. And then they had the COVID situation, and they were never quite the same when they came back. And they got eliminated by the Islanders in the playoffs. So you don't know. Sometimes it can help a team. They could rest up. They could get it together. They maybe were a little stale at the time they were forced to take a break. So it affects different teams different ways. But as little as 1 week, as I said, having off could affect the team.
Well, Jack, let's start dabbling in the NFL, right? And we have Randy Lane coming up at around 9 o'clock to look at the Jets a little bit. It's been a crazy year in the NFL, right? All teams can beat any team except if you're the Giants at any given Sunday, right? It's crazy.
Oh, come on, Mac. The Giants on any given Sunday, they can beat someone.
Yeah, I don't know.
Come on, Mac.
Anyway,
What's your team, Mac? You've thrown in the towel on your team?
No, I'll always root for them, Jack. I'm just being honest. So anyway, it's a real crazy season where you don't expect some of the wins. They call them upsets. I don't even know if they were upsets. It's just one team was a little bit better that day than the other. But at the beginning of the season predictions, the favorites, are starting to come up to the top right now, right, Jack? You got Kansas City taking over first. You got Tennessee in first. You got Buffalo in first. Then the NFC, you got the Rams, who are a preseason favorite after they picked up, the quarterback. And they're in first. You got the Dallas Cowboys, who preseason was a pick. They're in first. Tampa Bay, of course, is in first. And Green Bay is in first. So everything that's happened this year with the Jags upsetting people, the Jets upsetting people, teams just beating teams that they shouldn't beat, you would think the top teams are starting to come to the top, Jack.
Yeah, that's why picking games is hard, because certain of the really good teams, they get off to a bit of a shaky start early in the year. And then when we have to predict the outcome of games week by week, we look at what they have done to that point in the season, not realizing that they're going to get better as the year goes along. And conversely, some of the weaker teams get off to a good start, and then we start picking them to win, like the Carolina Panthers. They won their first 3 games. So week 4, week 5, we tend to pick them to continue to win. We say, wow, they have a good defense. Sam Darnold is really leading them well. We tend not to look at the big picture, okay, and really have faith in the team. Look, the Miami Dolphins, they were considered a playoff contender, at least. A contender, but then they got off to a 1-7 start. So by game number 9, we're picking against them. We feel, the Dolphins, they're soft, they're weak, they're this, they're that. And then every week they start winning. I mean, they've had like they've won their last, what is it, their last 7 games. I mean, they're at 8-7 now. So you just don't know with the cream rising to the crop. That's why the team that wins the Super Bowl is maybe going to start peaking now. There's a pack of teams, a number of teams that can win it, but one of the teams is going to start peaking pretty soon. If not this week, then the week after, and then they're going to go on a playoff run, whoever that might be.
Well, there's one team out there that maybe surprises everybody that's in first right now, and it's the Bengals. Baltimore's lost 4 in a row. Pittsburgh's having its problems, with Big Ben and trying to keep that team. I mean, they're not doing a bad job. They're still in the hunt, but they're not what they were for any reason that you could think of, except that maybe Big Ben is getting older and that defense and running game isn't good as it used to be. Cleveland has taken a step back. They, between the injuries and all the other things, Cleveland has taken a step back this year as opposed to last year. So the biggest surprise to me, Jack, this year in first place right now is the Bengals.
Yeah, listen, the Bengals play the Chiefs on Sunday.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about it. That's a big test. It could propel the Bengals into a new era, okay? That the Bengals are going to be a force for years to come if they beat the Chiefs. Or it could be a rude awakening. What happens if the Chiefs spank the Bengals? They beat them by 24 points. It's a rout. We'll think to ourselves, the Bengals have had a good year, but are they, a serious Super Bowl type contender going forward? We'll think they need a lot of work before they get there, depending on Sunday's game. But if they beat the Chiefs, all of a sudden it's a new era. I could say, and I've been apprehensive about the Bengals, but if they beat the Chiefs, I'll admit the Bengals have arrived. It's a new era in Cincinnati Bengal football if they beat the Chiefs. But if they lose to the Chiefs, they lose decisively. To me, it's the same Bengal team. They've just played well at certain points this year, and they've been in good situations. So Sunday's game with the Chiefs is going to tell us an awful lot.
We talked about, who may be coach of the year. Of course, Belichick's in there with the Patriots turnaround, the Tennessee Titans head coach, with the way they played with all the injuries, still in first place. You'd have to give the Colts a mention. You'd have to you'd have to look at the Bengals, and of course the Chiefs are now look like they're on all cylinders. But there's one team that's gone through probably more controversy this year than most, and that was their head coach resigning. Gruden leaves the team, and they've kept it together for the most part, Jack. They're still in contention. And the coach over at the Raiders, I think, should be considered this year, especially if the Raiders make the playoffs.
No, not an interim coach. And the Raiders are 8-7. They're no great shakes. I mean, listen, the Raiders were considered going into the season to be the type of team that would be 8-9, 9-8. You know, they're not doing anything special in Oakland at all. At all. Nothing special is going on there. Let's wait. You know, I don't like to discuss who's coach of the year until the season ends. You know what I don't like about that award, Mac, in any sport, why I hate it? It never takes into account the postseason. We should wait till the season is completely over, see who wins the championship, and then make an evaluation who is coach of the year. Now, a team doesn't necessarily have to win a championship. They don't necessarily even have to get in the playoffs for coach of the year. For example, in baseball, my vote in all of the major leagues would go to Gabe Kapler because he took the Giants to a 107-win season in an enormously great season. They got eliminated by the Dodgers in the first round of the playoffs, but what a great season. So let's see with the NFL. I mean, there's certain candidates up there. You know, what happens if the Dolphins don't lose another game? I mean, do you consider Brian Flores? Do you consider Bill Belichick? It depends what they do in the postseason. It looks like the Patriots are not going to win the division now. But let's say they get in as a wild card and go to the Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. You see, but we don't consider the postseason. So
right, that's why it's called.
I kind of like to wait, but
that's why it's called postseason, Jack, because the regular season's over. Then not all the teams are in it, so it would be more unfair to the teams that didn't make it. I just think you said they're not doing nothing special. I totally disagree with you. What the Raiders are doing to me is unbelievable. They've lost
8-7. What's unbelievable, Mac? They weren't that bad. They weren't a bad team coming into the year.
I don't care. They lost their head coach, Jack, and they kept it together. I don't care if they're 8-7.
How much are they keeping it together? They're 8-7. What was their record? Their record was about 500, as I recall at the time, and it's. Listen,
listen, Jack, you can't see. To me, I don't think you understand what the Coach of the Year award is. I think Bill Belichick had one of his best coaching seasons last year than he ever did, keeping that team together and keeping it relevant, even though they were only 7-9. You're just talking about winning teams. That doesn't mean you're a great coach because you have a winning team.
Did they exceed expectations? One of our viewers, Joe Bergman, writes about Nick Sirianni, the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. His name's being thrown around. He's not on board, but that's not a bad choice if you consider what was expected of the Eagles going into the year. Okay? They were expected to only win a few games. They're 8-7 right now. We got to wait for the next two games. If the Eagles win the next two games, get into the playoffs and they're 10-7, it's like, wow, you do have to consider Nick Sirianni. You have to consider him. I'm not saying he should necessarily get it. But what were the expectations, Mac? That's what you got to look about in the beginning of the year. Where was the team expected to go? You know, and sometimes you have a coach who has enormous talent. Should that be held against him if he wins? Listen, the Kansas City Chiefs looked gassed out early in the year. We thought, oh, they have Super Bowl fatigue. They've made the last two Super Bowls. They were playing poorly. We thought the Chiefs were on the decline. And all of a sudden, they got it together. And they're like the Kansas City Chiefs team that went to the Super Bowl the last 2 years again. What happens if they win the Super Bowl again? Should Andy Reid be considered? Okay? Do we hold it against them because he has Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, you know, and others, you know? It's not an easy award sometimes to give out.
Again, Jack, I'm talking about situations. You say this is what the Raiders were expected to do. They were expected to do that with John Gruden, not with the interim head coach. And Sirianni is a great candidate for Coach of the Year this year. I don't know
if too early. If they lose their next two, if they split their next two games, go 9-8. He's done a really good job, but is it solid enough to be coach of the year? I don't think so, but he
I
has to
do.
be
I think he's as
considered.
relevant. I think he's as relevant as any other coach out there right now. If they finish 9-8, they weren't even supposed to be close to that. And with a rookie quarterback, and with a total rebuild, I think that's outstanding, Jack. His first year as a head coach, going to 9-8, and you don't think that's worth something?
Well, what about the Packers, LaFleur there? They lose their opening game of the season. They get blown out by New Orleans. And then, they've gone on a great run, the Packers.
Yeah.
Okay, so far this year,
But Packers were expected to win the division, Jack. They were expected to win the division. The Eagles
they were favored,
expected to do anything.
And you have to consider all that. I agree with you.
Definitely. But don't poo-poo the Raiders.
But you don't necessarily disqualify someone from getting the award because they were expected. You have to look who are the other candidates.
I agree. It's got to be a fair thing. I'm just throwing names out there. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, look at Mike McCarthy. I mean, look what the job he's done with the Cowboys. Everybody says, hey, they're winning in spite of McCarthy over there. But Dallas is playing some really good ball right now. And you can say,
let's see what the Bengals do if they win Sunday. Go into the playoffs. I mean, they're to be considered. And
listen, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Listen, I think the Bengals will have more to play for than Kansas City. Sometimes that works for you, and sometimes that works against you. But they definitely have more to play for. Kansas City's already in, so we'll see how that shakes out over there. I'm really interested in the NFC West, really interested because the Cardinals, I don't know if they were reading their own press clips or, the teams have caught up to them, the tape that they got on the teams now. I know that in an offense, you've either got to be really, really good at something and almost impossible to stop. I mean, you can keep them in check, but you don't stop them. Or you've got to be able to be a little bit, I would say, adverse, right? You got to be able to do something else besides what you normally do. Because at this time of the season, Jack, there's enough tape out there on all teams. And you can either have the philosophy that Tennessee and the Colts have right now, a Green Bay Packer, Vince Lombardi philosophy, that we're going to do this and try and stop us. And you're really good, and most teams can't stop you for most of the time. Or you got to be able to change direction a little bit or grow a little bit. And it seems like the coach of the Cardinals, and he had this problem in college.
Cliff Kingsbury, yeah.
He would start off hot every year. But at the end of the year, even in college, teams would catch up with him. So I don't know if the Cardinals, it's not just Kyler Murray is what I'm saying. And it's not just because Hopkins is out. They've got a lot of playmakers over there. I don't know if he knows how to grow the team or if he's good enough at one thing to just overwhelm another team, Jack.
Yeah, I remember Jimmy Johnson once said he was really upset that a lot of good coaches were getting fired. Look, there are 32 teams in the NFL. Not everyone can win. It doesn't mean the coaches that aren't winning aren't good coaches. Sometimes it's this, the circumstance of what you have. The Cardinals got off to a great start. They've kind of hit a bit of a wall right now. Let's see if it continues. A good coach gets the team to regroup at certain points because certain teams, they hit a certain fatigue during the season, and it seems that they're sliding backwards. Let's see if they regroup. They're going to make the playoffs, the Cardinals. So they have that to focus on, okay? And, you never know how a team could regather itself. It just takes one win. Listen, I remember my New York Jets. We're going to have on Randy Lang, okay, here. So a couple of decades ago or whatever, more than that, I should say, they got off to a 10-1 start ages ago during the Ken O'Brien, era. 10-1. They were going to coast home and have home field advantage the whole playoffs. They went from 10-1 to 10-6. They lost their last 5 regular season games, and they lost the bye in the last game of the year. Now, that would normally be demoralizing. So now they had to play a wild card game against the Kansas City Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs. That was the best thing that could have happened to him, forcing him to play a bye game. They won a playoff game, and they started feeling like winners again. They go into Cleveland, okay, to play the next playoff game to see who would go to the AFC Championship game. They're leading 20-10 with a little over 4 minutes left. Mark Gastineau roughs the passer. Otherwise, Cleveland was going to have to punt out of their own end zone. Cleveland gets a first down. They rally, send it into overtime. They win. Okay? And, it all fell apart very, very quickly. But the point is, teams can gather themselves together all of a sudden. Arizona strikes me as that type of team. They could maybe gather themselves. Cliff Kingsbury, he'd run a lot of those college formations in the NFL where people said it couldn't work in the NFL. He made it work. But maybe teams, like you said, catch up to it as the year goes along. And maybe he doesn't readjust as well as other coaches. I don't know. I'm just speculating there.
And then you have the Rams, who seem to got their mojo back again, right? So, I mean, they're playing better defensively, which they have to do if they're going to compete against the Bucs, the Cowboys, and the Packers. Their defense has got to come to play. I don't care who they got a quarterback or running back and who their wide receivers are. What makes the Rams very good is their defense. And they had a couple.
They got more back than that. They got Mick Akers coming back next week.
Yes, they do.
They're running back, and Mick Akers was projected. This was going to be his breakout year, where he was going to prove he was one of the best running backs in the NFL, and I believe he was going to prove that this year. Then he suffered a terrible injury, and it seemed he was gone for the year. That's what they said. And through rehab and hard work, he's gotten himself back. And that might mean as much to the Rams as getting Derrick Henry back would mean to the Titans. And if you consider Mick Akers and maybe Odell Beckham Jr. gets it together, and next to Cooper Kupp, he turns out to be a great complimentary receiver.
Well, I just hope he ain't coming back too soon as far as Akers goes, because he's coming back very fast off that injury. But I still think, Jack, if that Rams defense, which can be dominating sometimes, with that pass rush and their defense, if they're not going to do anything. I don't care if they got Beckham or Akers or whatever, because you're going to go against some teams that are very, very good offensively, and their defense has got to win those games for them. I think they can if they play at their best. And then the 49ers. The 49ers are still alive for the playoffs. They have a good team. Jimmy G is hurt. They don't know whether he's playing next week or not. If Lance is playing, I think that's going to mess them up this year. I think their defense is good enough. Their running game is good enough. I just don't know with the quarterback position being up in the air. Not because Jimmy G could not bring them to the Super Bowl, but he may not be healthy enough to bring them to the Super Bowl. And I'm sure Lance can't bring them to the Super Bowl. I don't care how gifted he is an athlete, Jeff.
Mac, I mean, when you talk about favorites to go to the Super Bowl, you talk about Rams, Buccaneers, Packers. They'll have a fair amount of support, those teams. But if we had to talk about what team could pull a major surprise and go to the Super Bowl, major surprise, maybe it's the 49ers. I mean, they were projected to be pretty good in the beginning of the year, and they've been a bit erratic. But listen, they've gotten there before with, some of the players who are still on the team. And, Trey Lance, I think, is going to be starting this week.
That's what they're saying.
I believe. Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting because they gave up an awful lot to get Trey Lance. And when you give up what the 49ers did, a couple of number ones and other things, I mean, you can't just not go to him and make him your starter at some point. Because, you want to, if you're GM, you want to justify the deal. And they're not crazy about Jimmy G there. But right at this moment, he's a better option for them than Trey Lance. So Trey Lance gets his opportunity. I wonder if Trey Lance has a big game this weekend. Is the quarterback situation truly going to turn into controversy? Who's going to be the starter the following week? I think they're going to continue on with Trey Lance if he has a big, big game. But I get the feeling his development's a little slow. His development is similar. Would you replace Jimmy G right now with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields? You wouldn't really do that. And Mac Jones, he'd be another version of Jimmy G. So like you called it, Mac, before the year, you just went high on the quarterback crop, okay? You said, look, taking Trevor Lawrence is the logical move. The Jags should do that. But after that, you thought all the teams were reaching for a quarterback that really wasn't as good as they'd hope he'd be.
I mean, and Joe agrees with you, Jack. And I don't know if the Bucs are the same team as last year. It's hard to repeat, right? So if you go down there and you look at the Bucs and they got key injuries and they're trying to keep everything together. I think the Bucs are solid. I wouldn't be surprised if they made it to the Super Bowl and even won it. They're that talented team. But I mean, it's so hard to repeat out there. And you've got so many good teams in the NFC this year that are quality teams. I'll even throw San Fran in there. I think San Fran, if they're on all cylinders, could give Tampa Bay a game. I think the Eagles could give Tampa Bay a game if they're on all cylinders too. I don't think they beat them. But the Cowboys, the Packers, and I think the Rams could beat Tampa Bay right now with everything even. So I don't know about Tampa Bay, but I guess you can if you've got a quarterback to depend on. If his name isn't Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady's the guy, Jack.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. But let me tell you, another complete sleeper that could pull off a stunner if they get into the playoffs could even be a team like the Minnesota Vikings. They've lost so many close games this year. What happens if they get in the playoffs? Maybe they win the close games. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, Mac. I'm not predicting that's going to happen. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying, there's sleeper teams out there. There's going to be one team in the NFL where you have to think is going to go on a playoff run, not necessarily make it into the playoffs, but unexpectedly make it into either the AFC or NFC championship game. They'll go on that surprising run. I mean, there's going to be an upset somewhere. Okay, and I'm just where's it going to come from?
I agree. And you know something, the way things are going in the East right now, and let's say everything stays the same. Say the Eagles make a wild card. Right now, if they were to play a playoff game, they would have to play Dallas in the first round. So not only are they playing in the last game, which I think the Eagles are going to give them fits in the last game. I think the Eagles have a shot at beating them in the last game. Of course, we still got to play this week's games. But I have a shot. The Eagles always at the end of the year find a way to beat the Cowboys. They've knocked them out a couple times. And even if they lose, and say Dallas, they clinch the division, which I think they already have. Jerry Jones likes to rest his players. So if the Eagles win versus Washington, which they should.
Jerry Jones, is he making the decision on resting players?
I believe he is. He always is.
I mean, he's the GM. I mean, in addition to being the owner.
Jerry Jones.
Isn't that the coach's call, Mac?
No, it's not. Not as
How many organizations? Let me ask you this. I'm sorry to cut in on your thought, but I don't want to lose this thought. How many organizations in the NFL do the GMs make a decision to rest players and basically are letting the coach know? I mean, I don't get it.
I would think it depends on who the GM and who the coach is. I don't care what you are as a GM. I don't think you're going to tell a coach like a Tomlin or, of course, Belichick is the GM too, or some strong personality coach who's going to sit and who's not going to. You might ask them. But I guarantee you in Dallas, with the last two coaches they had, Garrett and now McCarthy, I guarantee you Jerry Jones is the one who tells you if players are going to sit or not, like he did with Garrett. And he has a tradition of doing that. So if the Eagles do beat Washington, like I said, which they should, and they play Dallas, and Dallas doesn't play all their starters, the Eagles should win that game too. Then they got to play them again. If everything stays pat, Jack, now anything can happen last 2 weeks, but if everything stays pat, the Cowboys will be hosting the Eagles in the playoff game, which I find very interesting.
Sometimes expectations factor into it psychologically with players. The Eagles, if they make the playoffs, and if they get blown out in the first game of the playoffs by the Cowboys, they could lose 43-0, and it would be a successful season. What are Eagle fans going to remember? Not so much that they got blown out in the playoff game. We bucked the odds. We made the playoffs. No one expected this except hardcore Eagle fans, and even they was, reserve judgment on that. So no, it's been a big major success for the Eagles no matter what, just making the playoffs. Forget the result. Everything else is gravy after that. Now the Cowboys, on the other hand, if they lost to the Eagles the first game of the playoffs, even though the regular season would have been a success, their year's tarnished.
I agree.
It's a bad feeling. We lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not like they went to the NFC Championship game and lost to the Buccaneers or the Rams or the Packers, one of the elite teams. Maybe that's acceptable. Win your division, win the first playoff game, and then you lose to an elite team. That would be disappointing, but at least Cowboy fans could say, on balance, we had a good year because we took a step forward. That's what we were saying about expectations before. Even with teams like the Bengals, if they get into the playoffs, lose the first game, the year's been a success because they exceeded expectations. And that's what I think the case is with the Eagles and, the Cowboys, differing expectations. And that has to favor the Cowboys. The Cowboys have to win. The Eagles want to win. That's the difference.
Well, as far as favoring the Cowboys, sometimes it works against you, Jack, because the pressure is on you to win where the other team is playing loose. A lot of teams, they go to the playoffs, aren't expected to win. The Eagles a few years ago, the Giants way back in wild card. A lot of teams aren't expected to win. They say, oh, you made the playoffs, that's good. And the other team should beat you. And that works against the other team sometimes because the pressure is, we should beat them. We have to beat them. And they end up making stupid mistakes or shooting themselves in the foot with a team that's playing loose. The team that said, hey, we're here. We're going to have a good time. Sometimes they win because there is no pressure, Jack.
I don't like that loosey-goosey stuff. Show me a loosey-goosey team, and that's a team of losers, okay? A team's under pressure. You have to handle the pressure. You look at, we're talking about the Eagles and Cowboys if they do meet. The Cowboy roster's better. They have better players. They should win. Let's simplify things. They have a Super Bowl winning coach, Mike McCarthy, with the Packers. The Eagles have a rookie coach, Nick Sirianni, over there. The Eagles have basically a rookie quarterback, even though it's Jalen Hurts' second year. It's his first full year as a starter. The Cowboys have one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL in Dak Prescott, a top 10 quarterback, put it that way, beyond, without question. And they have the better running backs, the better receivers, the better defense, you would think, the Cowboys. I mean, better impact players. They should win the game, yet if they don't...
I agree with everything you say, Jack.
The pressure should be on the Cowboys. Handle it. If the Cowboys play the Eagles coming in and they're playing very loose, it's a recipe for an upset. It shows me you're not focused if you're playing
let me tell you something about playing and coaching in that, Jack. You don't want the team to be stressed out. You want them to go out there and do a job and have fun doing it, because when you're having fun, you're winning. If you're going to go out there and you're going to have all the pressure on you, like has happened to the Dallas Cowboys the last I don't know how many years, going in and they should win the game, and they don't. And they did have the better teams overall. Paper don't mean nothing when you get on the field, Jack. I'm telling you the truth. The Eagles got maybe a better running game than the Cowboys. The Eagles' defense, I could match up against the Cowboys' defense. They're just
better than Ezekiel Elliott and Pollard.
I'm talking about overall. Yeah, the Eagles have, I think, the best running offense in the league, or in the top three, Jack. They have a great running game. They've been averaging over 20 yards a game for like the past 4 weeks.
They didn't run the ball early in the year. They didn't have much confidence in the running game.
Right, exactly, because the coach wanted to throw the ball more. Now he's changed his philosophy. All I'm saying is that it seems every time the Dallas Cowboys get in the playoffs, how you doing, Keith? Good to have you aboard. Even when they have good rosters, they lose. And there's going to be pressure again on them to win. And I'm not saying they won't win against the Eagles. I'm saying that these two teams know each other very well. They play each other all the time. They know the teams they play against. They know the matchups. And I'm telling you, Jack, the Eagles will have a shot at beating the Cowboys if they play playoffs.
I don't think so. The word to me isn't pressure. It's urgency. That's what I want a team to have, urgency. And that's the case with the Dallas Cowboys. Their first round playoff game, if it's against the Eagles, there's got to be an urgency. We absolutely have to win this game. You can't have an attitude, well, we're better than the Eagles. We should win this game. And you can't kind of peek ahead and say, okay, the Rams, Buccaneers, Packers, that's going to be tough. I mean, players are human. Mm-hmm. That's how they're going to think. It's hard to get up for every game with 100% mindset because, you do it week after week. You got to ease up a little bit too. Otherwise, you could burn out, okay, a bit. And I'm sure the Cowboys will look at the Eagle game and figure, we got this. We're going to win this game. We're going to prepare the right way, but we got this. They're not going to look that way at a game against the Packers, Buccaneers, or Rams. They're not going to figure we got this. They're going to think we got to do this and this to win the game. There's a difference involved between playing those elite teams and playing the Eagles. They're just better. They're not losing to the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles might not make the playoffs. Listen, Eagles still got to beat the Washington Redskins. They're playing a Washington.
And they should be. And
it's
they should
not
be.
A gimme that game. The Eagles could lose that game. I'm not saying they will. They could lose that game. It's not a gimme.
Listen, Jag. The Jags beat the Tennessee Titans. We know anybody could win. I'm just saying they should beat the Redskins. And it'll be very interesting in the last game to see how Dallas plays it. Because I know a lot of teams that rest their players, they get a little rusty when that playoff opens up. And the team isn't ready, and they're a little rusty, and they get behind quick, can lead to some problems. So let's talk about the Packers real quick before Randy comes in here at the top of the hour. Green Bay's very interesting. According to what I've been reading and listening to, it seems like that Rodgers and the GM have buried the hatchet, that they're getting along now, they're hugging each other, all this good stuff. In the beginning of the year, you never thought that would happen.
Rodgers is the man.
Right. So, Green Bay, again, is in position to make a Super Bowl run. They were in their last 2 years. Rodgers choked in the championship game the last
no, Mac. They didn't choke.
Anyway, he sure didn't play well in the last 2 championships games. Let's put it that way. The Packers have a real good team, Jack. I don't know if their defense is good enough. And that was been the last 2 years, everybody talks about Rodgers and that. We know what Rodgers can do. We know what the Green Bay offense can do. They might be even a little better this year. You got to have a defense. Green Bay going up against Tampa Bay, the Rams, or even the Cowboys, those offenses can be very explosive. I'm not questioning whether Rodgers could throw with these guys, but in the past 2 championship games, he hasn't been able to, because the defenses have come alive and played very well against the Packers. Can the Packers defense stand up to that test this year, Jack?
I have a difference of opinion. I actually think the Packers have a good defense.
I'm saying, will it be good in the playoffs? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, the playoffs, another element. The team's going to have all their players there. They're going to have their core group there. And you don't know. There are a couple of games to go. It's it's just kind of hard. I mean, the Packers, with Aaron Rodgers there, you can't count them out. But the problem is you got to win more than one game to go to the Super Bowl. And I've seen Aaron Rodgers in situations in the playoffs. He'll have a really big game and even maybe carry the team like he did against the Cowboys some years ago. Him and Dak Prescott, they dueled it out, a high-scoring game. Both were phenomenal. Rodgers came out on top. And then in the NFC Championship game against the Atlanta Falcons, he came out flat, in that particular game. The whole team was flat. The Packers defense is good enough. Let's put it that way. I don't think they're a liability at all. Look, they get the job done when they have to get the job done. I don't think they're liability, no.
When you play in an NFC North, and I think it's the same as it was the AFC East a while ago. I'm not saying the NFC North is terrible, but you got Detroit and Chicago every year, which is 4 wins. Minnesota, you could split. You now have 5 wins. So it's not the toughest division to compete in. When you look at the West, that's a very tough division. You come out of there, you're road ready, buddy. You like to say that. They're road ready. You come out of the West, that's what you are. And the 49ers beat the heck out of the Packers a couple years ago. And again, the Packers lost again last year. So do you think maybe because the competition in the North isn't that strong is why when it comes to the championship game, the Packers have a problem getting over the hump?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a point that's well taken. If you have to play within your division teams twice a year and they're amongst the better teams in the NFL, it takes a little bit of a toll. But listen, all you can do is win your games. Are you holding it against the Packers because they're taking care of business? They're doing what they have to do.
No.
They beat the Lions twice. They beat the Chicago Bears twice. And like you say, that's 4 wins, 4-0, and then all you have to do is split with the Vikings. That's what's known as taking care of business.
Oh, I don't disagree, Jeff. I don't disagree. I'm just talking about when they play the playoffs. Is that not unfair, but does it really show how good a team they are when they get in there? I imagine if the Bucks were in the North, they'd be in first place, probably 12-3. The Rams would probably be 12-3. The Cardinals might be 13-2.
We don't know.
We don't know, but I'm just saying, Jack, the competition, I think, during the year does make you a little stronger. And maybe that's why the Packers haven't been able to get over the hump the last couple of years. That's all I'm saying.
Well, they've played good teams. Listen, they played a Buccaneer team last year who really peaked at the right time. And listen, Aaron Rodgers, I could argue, played better against the Buccaneers than Patrick Mahomes did. I can make that argument. And the games were similarly as big. One was the Super Bowl. One was to see who would go to the Super Bowl. And, it just depends on whether the defensive unit you're going against, whether they have all their guys there or not. I picked the Buccaneers in the beginning of the year to win the Super Bowl. There's still time to get the vast majority of their players back and have all cylinders going, for the playoffs. So I'm going to stick with them as my pick. But listen, a couple of weeks ago, the Packers were looking really good. They played Cleveland last week. They escaped with a win, okay? That was a game they could have lost. They played the Ravens before that, the week before, and the Ravens went for the 2-point conversion at the end of the game, and the Packer defense stifled it. Give them credit. And they hung on and they won the game. Those are 2 games they could have lost, but they did win those games.
Well, I agree. Listen, Jack, I'm not
good teams in the Browns and the Ravens, and the Browns and the Ravens aren't in their division, and both are good teams. It was a must-win for the Browns. They came ready. Their defense was great. They maybe should have run the ball more against the Packers, and you could say, the Packers are suspect against the run, because when the Browns did run the ball, they did well. But don't the Browns have one of the better running attacks in the NFL with Nick Chubb? So, it's what you want to make out of it.
We shall see, Jack. We're going to take a quick break. On the top of the order, we should have Randy Lang, senior media consultant for the New York Jets. We'll talk a little bit about the Jets and the AFC East when we come back after these messages, folks. So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
When the job is done, this guy'll be ready to dig into something mighty good to eat.
How do you handle a hungry man? The manhandlers.
One of the manhandlers is Campbell's Vegetable Beef. Gets a man-sized supper off to a good hot start. Good.
The manhandlers.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
You worked too hard, you ate too much, the cheesecake made you greedy. Let your aching head and stomach hear this message from old Speedy. Alka-Seltzer, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Those Speedy bubbles relieve your upset stomach and headache fast. For acid indigestion alone, Alka-Seltzer Gold. Oh, what a relief it is. What a relief.
What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
I'm Chiquita Banana, and I'm here to say I am the top banana in the world today. Now you know the best bananas in the land, so don't slip up with an inferior brand. When it says Chiquita, it's a very good day to buy bananas.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. This is our Thursday edition as we update you and make commentary and review all the NFL sports in general. But right now, folks, we have a special guest that comes in with us every now and then. He's the executive consultant to Jets Media. I think that's what we agreed on for a title with him. He comes in, like I said, once in a while. He updates us on the Jets, and we'll talk to him about the Jets and the NFC East in general, because, of course, the Jets are doing okay for their first rebuilding year here under him. So let's bring up Randy and see what's going on. How you doing today, Randy?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Yeah, hi, Randy.
We're doing
Gentlemen.
good. Glad to have you aboard. First, I want to talk to you a little bit about the AFC East before we focus on the Jets. A real crazy year over there. New England comes up and they're playing really well this year. Buffalo kind of falls but comes back again. And Miami with a 7-game winning streak, making the AFC East very competitive with the top 3 teams.
Yeah, and 2 of those 7 came from the Jets. So
yes, they did.
I would say, Jet fans are going to be depressed about the situation, perhaps, because here they are. They're trying to rebuild, and New England has successfully transitioned, apparently, from Brady to Jones, and has one of their patented defenses that don't allow points and shut people down most occasions. Dolphins are hot. The Bills seem to be the team to beat early on. Are still, certainly in the running in first place in the AFC East and heading for the playoffs. So what about the Jets? Well, like you said, the Jets are rebuilding. They've shown some progress, and hey, this is the town they live in, and they've got to find a way to get over 500 and to possibly challenge for that division title at some point, because that's the surest way to get in the playoffs, even with 7 teams instead of 6 going into each conference's playoff grid.
Randy, I'm a little depressed as a Jet fan because I take it year by year, and I had no illusions. I predicted the Jets would have a 5-12 record this year, which would be an improvement. They won 2 games last year. There's an extra game on the schedule. They're playing 17 instead of 16. They had 4 wins. There are 2 games left. But then you look at the schedule, Tampa Bay and Buffalo. That 5th win isn't coming so easy.
No, it's not going to come easy. And, they get Tampa Bay at home this week, and then they go up to Buffalo. 2 years ago, they went up to Buffalo and beat the Bills as they were going to the playoffs, I believe. And that's because they rested a lot of people. Josh Allen, I think, played 2 series that year and sat down, and so did a bunch of other guys. And, that's one way to pick up a win against the Bills. Tampa Bay, all you can, you say, well, they're the defending champs and they're looking pretty good, but they did lose at home to New Orleans 9-0 a few weeks ago. So whatever was going on there, and also the Bucs will be without Evans, and there's a few other Fournette, I think, is possibly out. And so at least there's a chance. But the Jets need to build on the very good feelings, I think, for the team of the Jacksonville win. And we can say all we want about how Jacksonville is, below the Jets, and they're rebuilding too, and they had people out. But the Jets, they were playing kind of threadbare at a lot of positions. And my hat's off to the offensive line for blocking for a 273-yard rushing attack, which was amazing, all things considered. And, the defense had its struggles, but it also came up big in a few spots, especially at the end when they had to stop the Jaguars from getting in the end zone and winning the game. And there's Javelin Guidry making the pass defense on Marvin Jones and in the end zone. And so, there's a lot of good feelings about that, but it's not going to carry you very far. They have to be ready. They're getting players back from the COVID list this week. Not all of them probably, but that looks good. There's a few injuries that will have healed up. And so the Jets will be, I think, in their best possible condition to take on the champs and the Buccaneers and Tom Brady.
Well, let's talk. The Jets have won against some very good teams this year, the Bengals being one of them. So they do have the capability. I don't know if the Bengals took them lightly or the Jets just played perfect and the Bengals messed up. But beside the point, they have won against some very good teams this year. They had Miami a couple of weeks ago. The second half,
beat Tennessee too early.
Yeah, and they had Miami, In the first half, they looked great. In the second half, they kind of fell apart, which you might expect with a new team rebuilding. So I'm not that disappointed in the Jets. I'm not a Jet diehard fan. I do like the Jets being from New York. I'm a Giants fan, and they are playing better to me than the Giants at this point. At least they can put the ball in the end zone. I think a lot of things have to do, Randy, with trial and error, especially in your first year, right? Zach Wilson's having problems reading defenses and turning the ball over. So they try another quarterback, even though Zach might have been hurt a little bit. Normally, he would play even if he's a little hurt. I think they tried a couple things to see what could spark the Jets and what can't. And they finally, last week, even though Zach really didn't throw for a lot of yards, I think he threw for 102 yards, but he was pretty efficient. And the Jets running game, as you said, took over. And at least they had an identity for that game, right? We're going to be physical. We're going to run the ball with you, and Zach will throw the ball when we need him to. I think that's the right approach. They probably should have tried in the beginning of the year. Let's establish something, right? Let's not just throw the ball all over the place because at the beginning the running game isn't working. And I think as a new coach, it's a little difficult to try to find something to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say that, every new head coach, especially head coaches who have never head coached before in the NFL, such as Robert Saleh, some coaches are retreads and they kind of know the lay of the land. Robert Saleh, he came from San Francisco, built a pretty good defense there, and then he's with the Jets. And how do you do it? It was trial and error, as you said. Zach Wilson struggled out of the box, but he did show some promise in some areas. And he had work to do in other areas. So lately, you got to say, well, maybe some of that hard work and that time away from the field for 4 weeks because of the knee, helped him. And he's shown better accuracy and better decision making in the last 3+ games. He hasn't thrown a pick in 3 games and a little bit of the Philly game, which was his last pick. He did lose a fumble in the pocket, strip sack against Miami, but that was his first of the year strip sack. Trevor Lawrence, who, as we all know, is the first pick and the darling, long, flowing-haired quarterback choice of many people, and doing Subway commercials already, apparently. He's got 5 strip sacks, including one against the Jets, which was a marvelous 28-yard total sack, which the Jets didn't capitalize on because they ran a fake punt that didn't work. But all these things considered, I think that the key thing for Zach last week, let me just, wrap up my dissertation here, is Zach's receiving core, his weapons at receiver and, at wide receiver and tight end were decimated. And, he's without Elijah Moore, which we know. He lost Jamison Crowder to a calf. Jamison might be back this week, might not. We got to find out. He's lost Corey Davis. I mean, he's throwing to Braxton Berrios, and they're making the best out of it, but they're still only getting 102 yards passing. So what does he do? He uses his feet. And that worked against the Jaguars. Maybe won't work so well against the Buccaneers, who obviously have a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball, including their former head coach coordinating them in Todd Bowles. Yeah. So I think what Zach has shown is good, but it's not going to, you're not going to cash any playoff checks that way. You still got to continue to go onward and upward.
Well, Randy, they lost their offensive coordinator at the beginning of the year. They got a rookie offensive coordinator too. So he's learning, how to put in game plans against an NFL defense and stuff. So there's a lot of newness with the Jets this year. And listen, it's better than having a coach that's been there a few years and still, only winning 2 games. So you got to be a little bit happy with what's going on there. The thing that disappointed me most this year was maybe the Jets defense, because Saleh is supposed to be a great defensive coordinator, and you think the Jets defense would play a little bit better than they have this year. And that's the only thing that really has disappointed me a little bit with the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, and it disappoints anybody who's watching and saying, all right, well, it looks like the defense is gaining a little steam. They played well last week, and then all of a sudden another team comes in and runs for 200 yards on them. And yeah, that's not comforting. But, Saleh did not start with a great defense in San Francisco. He had to build it. And I think in his third year out of 4, it was the best it was going to be during his tenure there. And it was a top 5 defense.
Right.
Now, does that mean we have to wait another year plus 2 years to see a great Jets defense? I don't know. I mean, there's still key players there, and they built with a young group of players. I think we're starting to see that in the secondary with Bryce Hall and Brandon Eccles on the corners, and then you got Michael Carter II, who's coming back this week, I believe, from COVID, and Javelin Guidry, who played a really good game on 3rd down and 4th down last week against the Jaguars, who's coming into his own. The problem now has been, keeping everybody on the defensive line. They've had people coming in and out there because of injuries and COVID, and then also in the secondary, I got to count them up, but they must be on like their 10th different combination of deep safeties. Probably this week, if they get Ashton Davis back and Elijah Riley, I think that'll be a matchup they've had before. But if they don't get one of those guys, they've got new people. Will Parks played pretty well for just coming in off the street last week against the Jaguars. But at some point, Tom Brady especially will try to exploit any newness and any weakness in the secondary that he perceives. So all things considered, I mean, you're building around CJ Mosley in the middle, and hopefully Quinnen Williams. I still want to see more out of him. I think everybody does, but he's playing better. But he's not a monster yet, but he will be, I think. But he's going to get possibly John Franklin Myers back this week again from COVID. And Quinnen, I don't know if he'll be back because he went on the COVID list on Sunday morning. So you got to see all of these things are just preventing, I think, a really good continuity from building up from one week to the next. And the defense has ridden that roller coaster. They've looked good early. They looked pretty bad in that stretch with the losses to Indy and Buffalo. And now maybe they're coming back a little bit. We got to see. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, even without their key players in a lot of positions, are going to test the Jets.
The Jets in a nice position in the draft. If the draft were today, I believe they'd go 4th and 7th because they have Seattle's pick and the Jamal Adams deal. Do the Jets pick according to need or take the best players available? I'm always a supporter of taking the best players available and not going according to need. But people are saying the Jets have to address their offensive line, which they actually did in the last draft, Vera Tucker. But do they do that again this year? Draft the offensive line, build around Zach Wilson, or just take the best players regardless of the position? Let's be honest, the Jets need, virtually everything.
Yeah, they still have a lot of rebuilding to do. And yet, I think Joe Douglas, the GM, is of the school that most GMs are from, which is best available athlete. You might make an exception if you see a quarterback. But then again, I mean, the Jets and the Jaguars and the Patriots all kind of needed quarterbacks. So that was an easy call, best available athlete, and a quarterback drops to you there. That's obviously a no-brainer. But, when you start drafting for need, you start to, leave other areas untended, and it's kind of like chasing points when you miss a 2-point conversion. It's like, except it's a little more important because you're not going to lose a game. You could lose a draft, if you're guessing all the way and trying to fill in, all of the need spots without regard to the value that you're getting. So I would guess that Joe Douglas is going to do the best available. And if that's an offensive lineman, which it very well could be, I mean, I haven't studied the draft yet, but from what I'm hearing, quarterback's not a hot commodity this year. So what is? I mean, you're going to see offensive linemen.
Well, the Jets wouldn't take a quarterback on any condition.
No.
Imagine that if
but other teams
available,
might.
That was a great prospect. I couldn't see for the life of me the Jets, selecting one. Do they package those picks? Is anyone good enough, great enough, they feel, to move up the 4th and the 7th, to move up to number 1, for example?
Again, I don't know, haven't scouted the landscape for the draft, but Joe Douglas has shown that he's very agreeable to packaging picks to move up and to giving picks and taking multiple picks from other teams to move down. So I mean, Joe seems to be very versatile in draft language, and I expect him to do. He's an offensive lineman at heart, as you know. He played the position in college, and he drafts that way. And initially I thought, with the Mekhi Becton situation where he has not returned since the opener, you say, well, gee, what happened here? But early on, the smartness of what Joe did was pretty visible, because why did they need Morgan Moses? They had George Fant from the year before. He looked good at right tackle. Mekhi at left. Mekhi goes out. Fant goes to the left tackle. In comes Moses. Moses has basically played the last 15 games, or let's say 14 games out of 15. He's missed a few plays with injuries last week and a few weeks before that. But basically, he's played all 900 snaps since he came in, and he's played it well. So, and the line is coming together. It's not the battleground it was last year, where they had 11 different starters over the course of the year, and so on. And what they've got now, I think, is a good foundation. They lost Connor McGovern for the rest of the season at center, but he's the center. And you got your guards, probably, and let's see if I can remember the initials, AVT and LDT. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif and Elijah Vera Tucker. And you got your tackles. If you got 3 tackles if you sign them all. And I don't know the signing status of a guy like Moses, but I know he spoke the other day and talked about, he loves it here. He'd love to come back. Well, that's a good sign. I mean, you want people to want to come to your place. And there's been a perception that the Jets are not a good destination for free agents. I think that's really not true. I think that free agents have shown that they do like what they see when they get here. So that's a little far afield, but I think the offensive line might be okay, in which case, it's always good to package a best available pick with a need pick. So let's hope that happens and they get the player they need for whether it be wide receiver or a linebacker. They have been thin at linebacker all year because of injuries, but that's for the future. And right now they seem to be in the best shape they've been in for a little while as far as injuries and COVID. Let's hope that it translates into something positive against the Buccaneers.
Well, Randy, one more thing before we let you go. You got Saul, and I thought was a great hire because of his communication skills. Everywhere he's been, players and coaches alike say they love this guy, that he lets you talk, he listens to you, really listens to you, and then he makes evaluations based on all the information he gets. He's not one of those guys that are totally strict or that you can walk all over either. And it seems like there are certain coaches that can hold on to a locker room, and you know that by the end of the year, right? You see the Detroit Lions, they're playing hard still, even though they're not going to go anywhere. And Saleh seems that way too. And I think that's why some players may say, I love being here, because this type of coach that you got there is one of the most important things. Being a head coach is communicating to their players and to the coaches. And I still see the Jets playing hard. They don't give up, which sometimes it looked like at the end of the year, the last couple of years, that they kind of lost a little interest or maybe got frustrated. The Jets really don't look like that right now. They look like they bounce back and they play hard every week. And I think, you're close to the team. You're around them. How's the morale there right now?
Well, I agree with what you're saying. And, I haven't seen a lot because of the situation around the building with COVID and the protocols and regulations that have been installed. And they're very good for trying to keep players from the illness, although lately it has kind of overwhelmed a lot of teams. But all of that said, the Jets do seem to be a team that is together. They're a young group. They love coming to work. They do play hard, even when things aren't going well on either side of the ball. And they're growing. And Saleh and the people he's brought in are a huge part of that, and the players, of course, among themselves are a part of that. But I think that was considered to be one of his strengths, that he's a player's coach, but you're not walking over him. My God, I mean, he knows how to build a defense. He's going to try to build a team with the people he picked, and I mean, what you want to see is the progress. You don't want to see a 2-14, 2-15 team struggling to get into the off season so they can say all over again, this is the year we're going to show the progress. So, I mean, that to me, that's what's important about the Tampa Bay and Buffalo games right here, is not that they necessarily win them big, but let's play competitive ball, guys. I mean, you're getting players back. You're getting people back who are going to be here next year. Let's show that growth. Let's not have the 30, 40, there weren't 40-point losses, but there were a few 30s and some other losses where they had to come back to cut it down to, I think 28 was Indy, was it 45-17, something like that. That's too many points to give up, and that's too big of a loss to absorb at home or on the road. So let's show something against the Buccaneers, and let's show something at Buffalo and take that to the bank. And to me, that would be a great way to end this season. And if you can get the win, get the win.
I agree, Randy. Randy, again, I want to thank you for coming in as you do every once in a while. Talk a little bit about the Jets. I think they got a good thing going over there. They just got to hang in there, keep playing hard, and let the coach and listen up to him and keep rallying, because I'm gonna tell you, the next couple of years in the AFC is not going to be a joke. You got 3 very good teams over there right now, and it's going to be hard breaking that. So they need to take that next step and at least get up there near 500. And I think they can do that. I really do. So again, Randy, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. We love hearing from a Jets guy. We don't hear enough from him. So I want to thank you for taking some time and joining us this morning, Randy.
Thank you as always. Let me know when you need a little. I'll bone up on the draft, because I never work too hard on the draft until it's time to jump into it in January.
Well, just one very quick thing, because we have to move on. When the Bears played Seattle last weekend, that was a big game for New York football, because the Giants have the Bears draft pick in the first round, and the Jets have Seattle's. Right. So there was a lot at stake. So the Jets actually beat the Giants indirectly Sunday when the Bears pulled out the miracle win.
That's a very good point. And you take any one of those positions. Let's climb a little bit higher and package it, and whatever we have to do, get the player we want.
Listen, I think anybody can beat the Giants this year at anything. So that's fine. You know what I mean? Randy, again, thanks for coming in. Good luck to you guys over there, and hope you guys win the next 2 games. Go ahead and beat them.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
It would. Thanks again, Randy. Guys. Have a great one.
Appreciate it.
So there you go, folks. Randy Lang giving us some Jets news and information. I love having him on. He's very knowledgeable, knows what's going on over there. And when we get to the draft, we'll call on him again, Jack, and we'll talk to him a little bit about the draft and what happens at the end of the year here. So, folks, we're going to take a quick time out here. Scheduled to have Tony Page on with us, the former WFAN overnight personality, there for 16 years and knows a lot about boxing. I'm going to be in with two very good boxing experts, and plus a professional that did it for a long time, the longest tenure at WFAN overnight. We'll be right back after these messages, folks. Stick with us. It won't be long.
I heard you want to be a Frito Bandito like me. You do? Then you must sing the Bandito song. Let's sing together. You just follow the bouncing Fritos corn chips bag. Ay, 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 ay. I am the Frito Bandito, baby. I like Fritos corn chips. I love them, I do. I want Fritos corn chips. I'll get them from you. Ay, 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 ay. Oh, I am the Frito Bandito. Give me Fritos corn chips and I'll be your friend. The Frito Bandito, you must not offend. Now, boys and girls, you are Frito Banditos too. You sing the Frito Bandito song, and you loco for crunchy Fritos corn chips. That's nice. Munch, munch, munchy, munchy Fritos corn chips.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, you guys any...
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. Today's our Thursday edition, where we just had Randy Lang on, the executive consultant for Jets Media. And we got a very special guest backstage right now, folks. He was with WFAN overnight for 16 years, the longest tenure over at WFAN. He's a boxing expert, which I will have now two boxing experts, as I do once in a while on the show at the same time with Jack Hirsch and Tony Page. Joining us right now. Let's bring up our special guest, Tony Page.
Hey guys,
how's it going?
Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys doing? Happy New Year coming up, and Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, everything.
Happy everything. Just be happy.
And
Yes.
if you're an atheist, have a good day.
There you go. Happy. What is that pole there that they celebrate there? That Festivus pole, whatever it is. Happy everything to y'all. Yes. Hey Tony, Jack brought your name up to me, and I recognized it right away. I used to listen to the Fan all the time. You, Steve Summers, and overnights because I worked overnights, and I used to listen to you back when I was working at a different job. Can you tell us a little bit how you started your career in broadcasting?
That's funny. I went to Florida A&M University for a year, and there was an opening at a radio station, WTNT, which was a CBS affiliate. I was the first black news person they ever hired there. This was during Watergate, so that's how I got got my chops, if you will, because we used to go out and talk to people about what was going on in the government and Watergate and the people resigning and all that kind of stuff. Eventually, Nixon resigned, so that was my first taste. But sports came different. We did a 12:30 in the afternoon newscast, and it's in 12:25 they said, well, sports guy's coming in to do the sports. I said, oh, okay. So this guy just sashayed into the newsroom with a newspaper under his hand. Hey Tony, nice to meet you. And he said, okay, here's so and so with the sports. And he just opened up the paper and read the highlights. Florida State University beat so and so, or the Atlanta Falcons traded so and so. And I said, I should do this when I retire, because this is a piece of cake. Just and they threw the paper in the garbage and he went home. But I always said, if I ever get a chance. And then I guess my rabbi in this situation is Russ Salzberg, who worked for WWOR and other local news affiliates here in New York. And he told me they were looking for an update guy, because I always talked to him over the phone, because he used to be president of the New York Association of Black Journalists, and one of his editors was winning an award. And we always talked. And I saw him at Nick Media Day one day, and he said, Tony, talk to me later. I'm really, really busy. So I called him later, and he said, they're looking for an overnight, they're looking for an update guy. They're looking for a minority. I said, I don't want to do any updates. And he said, well, why don't you just go to see how the interview was handled? Well, how interviews are done these days. I said, that kind of intrigued me. So I met Mark Chernoff, who was the program director, and we spoke for about 20 minutes. And this is a good lesson for people. We didn't talk sports for 20 minutes. We talked politics, family, crime, education, religion, everything. And I said, Super Bowl was that Sunday. I said, man, I better throw in something about sports. And I started to, and he said, stop, you're not an update guy. And I said, well, what am I? I said, you're a host. I'm like, okay, fine. What does that mean? He said, and he called, I might have something for you. That's famous last words. Everybody has something for you. But he called me a week later and he said, I'm gonna give you 2 shots to work the overnights. And if you do well, I'm hiring you. And if you don't, I won't. And that's perfect. That's all I ask. Give me a chance to fail. And, we worked for the Fan for 3 years, working part-time, Sunday night from 1 to 6 for about 3 years. And then got the overnight gig when they had a little contest. Everybody liked me, and I got the job for 16 years. I have the record for the overnight for being there the longest. That's Summers, but I don't think anybody's. I think it's like Joe DiMaggio. Ain't nobody breaking my record.
Well, Tony, I mean, what was it like? I mean, WFAN is huge across the country. I mean, everybody knows WFAN, and when you get involved in there, do you mingle? I know overnights. I did a little bit of DJing back in my day. And I've spent some overnights with different disc jockeys and stuff. Is it? I really didn't. You're by yourself, right? I mean, there's really nobody around you, so you pretty much do anything you want. The program director, the general manager, they're all sleeping or whatever, unless something significant comes up. Did you like that freedom, or would you rather been on, in the morning and the afternoon drive with all the chaos?
Well, I worked at ES when I left. FAN after 3 years, I went and did some other things, PR for Duva Boxing, and I went to ESPN for, 4 months or so. And I worked from 7 to 10 in the evening with a partner, and I thought this was the easiest piece of cake I ever had because you got to go to bed at a regular time. But I had done overnight stuff in the past. I'd worked in the post office overnight. I did some stuff on ABC Radio with Curtis Sliwa, believe it or not, a couple of overnight things. And it's easy. You just, you have to develop what's going to happen. You have to develop your callers because they're the ones that's going to drive. Not too many things break at night. No trades are done at 3 o'clock in the morning. A couple of things early, but nothing like that. But I liked it. My boss, I found out, you have to learn how to work with people. I think he thought I was antisocial because I get off at 6 o'clock and I was out the door. And I realized he just wanted me to stick my head in the office and see everything was okay. Because it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I want to go to sleep. I don't want to hang out. I don't need a cup of coffee now. Let me get the hell out of here. But it was, I've had guests on it. I covered the NBA for 3 years in the early 90s. And David Stern, I got to know him, interviewed a bunch of times in his office. And when I told him I got the gig at the Fan, he said, oh, man, I'm real happy for you. What's your hours? I said, 1 to 6 every Sunday morning. He looked at me and said, I love you, but I ain't coming on at 2 o'clock in the morning. So you tape people and you brought them in. Like we used to have the old cassette recorders, and that's that's a
Tony, how did that affect your family life? Because when you're sleeping, everyone else is up, and when they're sleeping, you're at work.
It took a while to get used to. Like my wife and I, we would exchange car keys when I would come home. Like she worked in the city at the time, so you say, "Hey, how you doing?" Bye, and I go home and sleep, and then I wake up. My son's in school. I live in a quiet neighborhood, so that was a good thing. But it bothered me after a while because you like, for instance, I go in and a snowstorm's coming. I'm worried about the family, they're going to be all right. And can I get back? A lot of times they put me in a hotel because a blizzard was coming or something. But my wife and my son are resourceful. But, it's after a while, it's just, overnight gets you for a while. I always would have liked to have done something during the day, but they, didn't see fit to give me anything. So that's okay. Like I said, I was paying the bills and paying the mortgage, so I was happy.
You mentioned something about sticking your head in the door, getting to know the staff. You worked at WFAN during the time that Mike and the Mad Dog were hosting their show, correct? Yeah. What was your relationship with them?
I got along with Mike. I don't really had a problem with him. I used to be on this show to talk about boxing. Then we had a falling out because, long story short, when Lewis beat when Lewis and Holyfield had the draw at Madison Square Garden, I got Arthur McCandy Jr. on, who was the referee. And I thought that was a nice get. The Post put my name in the headline. I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. And we, all night long we talked about the fight. So I'm only on once a week. I come back the next week. St. John's in the NCAA tournament. St. John's loses. And I had Dick Weiss on, who went on to be a Hall of Fame basketball columnist. So I had him on for 2 o'clock. So 1 o'clock, I do a little monologue. 1:20 to 2 o'clock. I still remember it. Nothing but boxing calls. You have Dick Weiss on, talks about St. John's, basically boots on the ground. He's there. He's in North Carolina. He's talking about the rest of the tournament. Okay, that's good. 2:20, we're done. 2:20 to 3:30, nothing but boxing calls. No basketball. And I asked my producer, what's going on? He said, this is a testament to you. Don't you know? I said, no, what? The station cut off all boxing calls Tuesday morning. So you want to talk boxing, talk to Tony on Sunday. I'm like, oh, okay. Monday, Mike and the Mad Dog, not really Mike, but Mad's like, oh, bad job by Tony. You know, you should have had a basketball. Ain't nobody coming on at 2:00 in the morning after you lose. The NCAA controls the media. I mean, you're not getting these guys. I had the next best thing, a guy on the ground, and basically I said, don't tell me how to run my show, and I won't tell you how to run yours. So the program director said, it's not a good idea to get into an argument with Mike and Matt. I said, why? I won't put you on the show anymore. I'm like, gee, I'm really hurt. And they never put me on again. But Mike, to his credit, when my mother died, he sent me a card when my mother died. When I had kidney surgery, he sent me a card. When I retired, he said he wanted me to be on the show in the studio. I thought he said, well, you almost want a phone call, right? He said, no, he wants you to come into the studio. And we talked for an hour. So, you know, and I've seen Dog at fights and we get along. It's just, but, you know, like I said, you know, you guys didn't know what was going on. You guys shut the station down, not me. I can't, you know, that's my audience. You know, they don't want to talk boxing until they have to talk boxing. So,
right. What
I got along with everybody, you know, because you eventually you guys will pass through the nights. Like Ed Coleman would come in to do his invoices at 10:00 at night or 11:00 at night after doing a Met game, and you know, stuff like that. It was always, hey, look who showed up. I actually got Dwayne Sanchez, the ex-Met. He came in the studio at 2:00 in the morning.
There you go.
But how many people know that? You know,
right? Tony, what got you interested in boxing, covering boxing? I mean, Jack, of course, been writing about it since he was a little kid, and doing his thing. What got you interested in that?
Muhammad Ali. You know, I remember as a kid in I don't know, whatever it was, 8th grade, not even 8th grade, before that. And he was fighting Sonny Liston, Cassius Clay. And we all talking, who's going to win? Well, Sonny Liston's going to win. A champion always wins. And then when Clay won, we were like, I guess this is the new guy. And I've always liked it and went to a lot of closed circuit fights. But I remember when I worked for WTNT in Tallahassee, they sold the station. We all lost our jobs. So I came back to New York. And it was an announcement that Nassau Coliseum was going to open up with its first fight. Main event, Jerry Quarry, a heavyweight contender against Joe Alexander from Thomasville, Georgia. Thomasville, Georgia is down the road from Tallahassee. And he was training at Gleason's, the original Gleason's gym in the Bronx. I'm one of the few people I think I actually went there. All funky, dirty, smelly gym, but I loved it. And I got to talk to Joe Alexander. And I always remember this old guy with no clothes on came over to give Joe advice on how to beat Jerry Quarry. And I'm in the middle of my interview. So I said, okay. And then I remember I went to the Nassau Coliseum and Joe knocked Quarry down in the first round, and then he went for the kill in the second round, and Jerry knocked him out. So I figured I just walk into the press room, and the guy's like, who the hell are you? And I said, well, I'm doing this story for WTNT. You got a press credential? Like, what's that? So they didn't let me in, but I had audio from Joe, before Gleason's. And I said, I have to look into this. And I just started doing boxing for a lot of small black papers, and Wally Matthews, who was president of the boxing, I said, you should join the organization. And, I was like, okay, I was kind of leery because, I don't see a lot of guys that look like me covering sports. I see them in the ring, but not sitting at ringside. And I remember going to the first meeting at Gallagher's Steakhouse. And Barney Nagler welcomed me, Irving Rudd welcomed me, Vic Siegel. And, I said, these are the stalwarts of boxing, and PR and writers and just fit right in. And, I think we're all a little loony, so that's why it worked.
Well, eventually Tony became president of the organization, and he won the election. You know who he beat, Mac? Yours truly. I had my day years later. I ascended to the top after Tony retired.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a lot of fun. It's you have to look out for the writers. And now I'll give you a quick story. It's kind of odd. There's a strip club called Scores in New York, and they had a sports wing. And they were going to get into boxing. Well, that's kind of hey, fine. So they decided to have the press conference at Scores. And I said, well, you can't do it there. He said, why not? I have women members and they're going to feel uncomfortable. And they said, well, we're going to do it there anyway. It's okay. Well, I won't come and I'll tell my members not to come. So they changed their mind and took it somewhere else. You got to have some kind of morals, even in boxing. You know?
Sure. So Tony, me and Jack have a lot of guests. Uncle Jack knows a lot of people in boxing, and we talk a lot to promoters, fighters, media guys, and boxing has kind of taken a little bit of a hit because it's all pay-per-view. There's so many sanctioning bodies. They don't make the fights like they used to. The general public, boxing sort of kind of has come alive again with some of the good fights, but it's nowhere close to where it was back in the 70s when you had 4 champions and all the contenders were fighting each other. You knew who the heavyweight was and you knew who the contenders were, and they've kind of lost that. Do you think it will ever go back to where, we can see fights on TV, we know who the contenders are, and that boxing kind of makes a comeback in that way?
No, I don't think it ever will. One, it's not on network TV. I think there's a fight on New Year's. Is it Charles Martin is fighting?
I'm going to be there ringside. It's a pay-per-view show, Tony. They're charging $40. $40 isn't a lot of money. But when you look at the quality of the show, think of it. The main event, Luis Ortiz and Charles Martin, that just doesn't do it for pay-per-view.
If it was $9.99, I'd still have a problem with it. It's not a pay-per-view fight. I'm sorry, I'm not interested. I think the problem is twofold. It's not on free TV because you can watch the guys develop. More importantly, the newspapers are dying and they don't care about it. Like you think about Tyson in his heyday, the News, the Post, the Times, the Newsday in New York all had a designated boxing writer that covered the sport. And you could write only so much Tyson where you start writing about the undercards and the other fighters. And I remember they had notes columns, which is unheard of now. And you don't have a write. I still write for the Daily News and I try and get a boxing piece every here now and then, but it's not the same. There's too many organizations, there's too many titles, too many champions, too many guys who are designated. What am I? A franchise champion. I'm a super champion. I'm a champion in recess. I'm like that. People don't know. When I used to do some reporting for international television for over in Europe, we would go to press conferences and then we go on to do man on the street. Like, who do you think is going to win Holyfield and such and such? And people would talk about it. And as the years went by, when you'd mention a fighter's name, they go, who's that? And they don't know the weight class. They don't know if he's a champion or not. When I was a kid, I'm like Jack too. We would buy Ring magazine, we buy KO magazine, Boxing Illustrated. Because that was the way you got your information. Now it's everything's on the web. It's you can learn about boxing because on YouTube they got every single fight you ever can imagine for 1,000 years, and you can watch stuff. But if I went to somebody and said, who do you think Canelo Alvarez should fight next? They're like, who? He's a champion, right? What's his weight class? And that's the other thing. Guys jump so many weights. Duran was a lightweight forever. Sugar Ray Robinson was a welterweight forever, then became a middleweight. These guys, he's an 8 division champion, he's a 5 division champion. So what's your greatest weight? Everybody looks at Roy Jones Jr. as one of the greatest fighters, but is he a middleweight? Is he a super middleweight? Is he a light heavyweight? Is he a heavyweight? What's your designation? People don't know. If you went up down the street and say, Roy Jones, I'll give you $50 if you tell me 2 categories that weight categories that Roy Jones won a title, they may not be able to figure that one out.
Well, even women's boxing, which has made some strides, we don't know what weight divisions that they're fighting in. No idea. They're just names to us. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, Clarissa Shields. What weight? Most fans would have no idea what weight division they were in.
No, if you ask somebody on the street, you're a boxing fan, name me 10 women fighters, they're not going to make it. They might get 3. They might name, Layla Ali. Well, she's not fighting anymore. Oh, okay, Lucia Riker, she's not fighting anymore. They can't name any active fighters. There's no designated media platform for boxing. Some shows have tried to start, but they, I think HBO pulling out of the sport, that hurt it a lot because, you knew you were going to see some great fights. And they had competition between HBO and Showtime. Now, it's Showtime and with the fighters on Showtime and Fox, and that's it. And ESPN, but ESPN again, that's top rank only. You're not getting on there unless you're top rank.
And the zone's pretty good, but it's basically scattered different promotional entities of, prevent fights from taking place.
Right. And the worst thing is when a guy unifies the title and everybody, can identify with that, then you want to fight, this guy to make $10 million, but the organization says, no, you got to fight the number one contender, and you'll be lucky if you get $1 million. And like, that doesn't make sense. So you take the big fight, you get stripped of your title, then they give it to somebody else. And it's like a revolving door championship.
Yeah, it's very confusing, Tony. My first fight I ever watched was Ali Frazier #1, probably the greatest fight I've ever seen. As far as a fight and the build up and the promotion, everything was just on point. And since those days, I mean, Tyson had his time and you had 4 great champions with Lewis, and you had Evander, and you knew the guys. And now it's just, I mean, there's 3 different light heavyweight champions and 3 different heavyweight. I mean, it's just crazy. And I wish they would get their stuff together so they could, because I love boxing, I really do.
What they need is never going to happen. They need a boxing commissioner. And I always thought you put the 4 commissioners of the organization in the room, give them a baseball bat, whoever comes out, that's the commissioner. It's never going to, you win a championship and if you unify the title, you're going to be stripped in 2 months anyway.
Jack says the same thing. And in other sports, do you follow the New York sports teams?
Oh yeah,
Tony, or do you have favorites that you watch more?
I'm. It's funny. I'm happy because every team in New York has won a championship since I've been alive. Even though the Nets went to the NBA Finals twice, they won 2 ABA championships. So I'm fine. I'm a Tampa Bay Bucks fan. They won. I'm happy. I was happy with 1. I didn't need Brady to win the second one. I'm content. But I think we tend to get carried away with sports in New York more so than a lot of other places. Hot spots like Philly and Boston, they got rabid fans also. But you look what's going on with the Knicks. I mean, I'm sorry, not the Knicks, the Nets. Kyrie Irving is an idiot. I don't care what anybody says. My pride, my one wish is that somehow the Knicks get it together and face the Nets in the playoffs. He can't play in any of the games because he's not vaccinated, and then you lose, or you get Durant infected because you pass it on to him. Now what are you going to say? It's like I'm old enough that I went to school at kindergarten when Eisenhower was the president, and I remember the first grade getting a polio vaccine, which was a sugar cube with a little bit of medicine. And I said, "Oh, this is great! I'll take every vaccine they give us." After that, it was a needle in the arm, and they're holding me down, and I'm screaming like, "What are you doing? Where's the sugar cube?" And nobody was outside the schools complaining about the vaccines. We all got everything. Smallpox. What was it? Chicken pox, German measles, mumps, polio. Everybody got everything. If you didn't get it, people looked at you like you're crazy. Now everybody is, they got their PhD in science and they know everything. And what's going to happen is like, look, I like watching HBO's Hard Knocks in season. I think that's really cool because the Colts started so poorly, and here they are. Nobody wants to play the Colts, and I'm like, this is going to be a great story. And then their knucklehead quarterback's not vaccinated. He can't play this weekend. Yeah. What do you say to your teammates? We're trying to, make history, and now we can't play with you. But you're the guy helped us get us here. So the athletes just of today, it's what's your brand? What you can't affect the brand. Like what brand? Just go play ball. You're going to make money. Look, didn't Michael Jordan make more money off the court than on the court? Just play ball, and that happened. And then everything falls in place.
You touched upon, Kevin Durant. And the thing that bothers me about Kevin Durant, he's an all-time great player as far as I'm concerned, but he's not a leader. He defers to Kyrie Irving. It should be his team. He should take the leadership role, yet he backs off. And it's like Kyrie Irving's still the leader of that team, as insane as it sounds.
Yeah. And I'm they need Joe Harris to come back because they need that 3-point shooting. I think they have a nice little team. I think they can make it to the finals. But again, what happens if you get into the finals? You can't play Kyrie, or if you have the best record, it's a 7-game series. 4 games you can't play in New York. So it's like, and what do you say to your teammates? Your so-called brothers in arms now, where you're here to help us win, and you're not here. It's one thing when you pull a hamstring and we know you're out, but a vaccine, you can play in all the games. And don't tell me you're going to get the vaccine in 2 months in the playoffs. What were you doing then? I remember why I'm so annoyed at him is he went to a WNBA game at the beginning of the season and he sat in the vaccinated section. He wasn't vaccinated. That's a crime. You could have killed somebody. But no, it's Kyrie Irving. I do what I want, and nobody tells me what to do.
It's all about him. It's all about him, Tony.
Mhm.
How about in the football? The Jets and the Giants, they haven't had a good team in like, I don't know, 10 years, each one of them. They're always rebuilding. And maybe the Jets have something with Saleh there. He seems to be a good communicator. The Giants have Judge, who seems to be old school. Do you see any hope for these two teams in the next couple of years?
No. It's the problem. You combine the two teams, you don't even have a decent team. But what it comes down to, it's everyone wants a franchise quarterback, and the jury is still out on these guys. But it's the front office that drafts these guys. That you got a starter in the 5th round, you got a second rounder who really was a first rounder. It's the talent. You have to have the talent. If you may not have the greatest quarterback in the world, like we've seen on the old Chicago Bears team, hell of one of the all-time great defenses, a so-so quarterback, but that's all they needed. Then you get some teams like, remember what, Dan Marino went to the Super Bowl, his second year or whatever? He figured he's going back 7 or 8 times.
Yeah.
It's you have to have players, you have to have depth, you have to have I talked about the brand. It's not so much a brand, it's a culture. You have to know what it is to win, and these guys don't. And you watch some, like when the Giants played Fromm at quarterback. I thought they were playing at a 40-mile-an-hour wind because he was missing guys by 20 yards. I'm like, what? I could do that. I mean, what's wrong? He's just not that good. Do you think he'll be on the roster next year? No. Jones seems to be good. I mean, I think a lot of Giant fans are upset the Judge is coming back, but if he gets canned in the middle of next year, it just keeps sending the franchises back.
Yeah.
How many years should a coach be given if there's not progress? Because Judge has had 2 years. To me, that's enough. If you're not showing progress, you move on. But some people say 2 years isn't enough.
That's not
it isn't. I think you got to give him a little bit of more time, especially in this day and age when you don't know what your roster is. Some teams they're going to win. Then you find out, we've lost 15 guys to COVID. Well, you have depth, but you ain't got that kind of depth. I think the Eagles are on their 7th offensive lineman because guys, the old days it was just, he's out because he hurt his knee. Was it the health protocol? Everybody's out because of COVID. And what does the NFL do on the night before the Super Bowl? The quarterbacks come down with COVID.
Yeah, it's a possibility, Tony. It's a possibility. Yeah. It definitely is. I agree with you. I think a coach should at least get 3-4 years to get, because otherwise you're going to be rebuilding every couple of years and you're not going to get anywhere.
And what's so odd is you get a guy like John Madden who just passed a couple of days ago. I mean, he played 10 years and he coached for 10 years and said, that's about it. I'm burned out. I'll never coach again. And he was right. Mm-hmm. Then you get, Belichick will probably coach till he's 90. I mean, how come, Parcells burned out? Some guys burn out. What was it? Joe Gibbs or the Redskins used to sleep in his office. I mean, but then some guys can last forever. As long as their health holds up, they're still there. Arians of the Bucks, he seems to be there. I think he has a heart monitor when he's coaching. He has something over his chest. But it's again, if players aren't listening to you at some point. When I coached the Knicks, I always was impressed with Pat Riley. I think I asked him once what happened with the Lakers. He said the guy stopped listening to me. Because you're successful, but it's the same speech over and over and over. And the first time you say it, they're on the edge of their seats and we got to win. Like, yeah, we know we're going to win now. After the 10th year, you're not, it's the same speech we heard 5 years ago. So you get a new blood, new voice. And sometimes that voice, is not heard either.
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, Tony, we got to get going. We're coming to the end of the show. I want to thank you for coming in. Jack did a tremendous job getting one of the best WFAN announcers I've ever heard, and a guy that knows a lot about all sports. And Tony, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it, my friend.
All right, thank you very much. And you guys have a good New Year. Jack, we'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot, Tony.
All right, guys.
There you go, folks. The great Tony Page comes in and spends some time with us. Jack, again, great bringing him on. And we thank Tony again for coming.
Just as good a person as appears. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, down to earth.
Oh yeah.
And nothing controversial, but speaks his mind and well thought out. I love people like that. So again, folks, we're closing it out for today. We'll be back tomorrow on the Friday edition, where we'll have NFL analyst Byron Williams. We'll have on TGI Sports Talk Keith Angle and the Philly sports guy himself. Saturday is our debate show. Sunday is our big football show. And remember, 3 January, we're going to Roku TV, folks. So be ready for that. Again, have a great day. Have a great Thursday, folks. And we'll see you tomorrow on the Mac and Jack Sports Show.